Thanks for tuning in to the latest episode of the Guinness Six Nations Tour. Please be aware that there may be some not suitable for work language used throughout this episode. Definitely not by me or Shanks, though, but these two are animals.
If there are any children who may be listening, put on their favourite TV show and some headphones, sit back and enjoy.
Up yours. Welcome to the We Love Sport Guinness Six Nations Tour. We are Flats and Shanks, and joining us at our next stop at the library in Leeds is former England captain Dylan Hartley and ex-Rugby Sevens international for Ireland, Greg O'Shea.
Make some noise!
Make some noise. Even if they're booze. Even if they're booze. Greg, you come from Ireland today. Are you all right?
Sorry
You've
about that.
before. You've come from Ireland. Good effort, fella. Well
Thanks,
done.
man. Yeah, honoured to be here. I flew into Manchester, and then the trains were cancelled for the storm that doesn't exist. And then got an Uber up. Yeah, glad to be here. First time in Leeds. Lovely spot.
It's a good spot. It's a good spot. And what time is it now? I mean, you can watch this at any time of day at home. It's 8:00 p.m. here, but it sort of kicks off. About 2 hours from now, Leeds gets better and better and better. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about
Your big night
Six
planned.
Nations. We're here to talk about Six Nations, so can you clue in a bit, guys?
Dylan, where have you come from? How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I've
Come from Sierra Leone, mate. He's been on military duty, look.
Big Call of Duty fan.
Oh, it's going to go all night, isn't it?
No,
I like it.
Take
Only
it on.
jealous.
No,
It's
no,
really
no.
nice.
Keeping it on. Thank you. Midlands, 2 hours drive, nice and cruisy. Easy. Good to be back in Leeds. Thankfully not staying here. I've got some memories from the Stuart Lancaster era.
Yeah.
Okay.
When he humbled the England rugby team.
Tell us
Oh,
a
that
little
was
bit-
here, wasn't it? Yeah, I remember
Tell us
that.
a little bit more then.
Well,
Keep it clean.
Yeah, we'll keep it clean. Serious rugby chat. That's what we're here
good.
for.
Yeah, it's good, yeah.
No, just when I started my career, I suppose, with England, 21 years old, you were playing at the time, Flats.
Yeah, what a player, though.
Oh, great player.
That's his first shirt down there.
It's not-
Don't know if you can see.
It's not about me tonight. What a player, though.
No, but, like international sport, high performance, 5-star hotels, business class, first class sometimes.
I've never looked back. Anyway, yeah.
But we basically, under Jono, that was the policy. That's how we did it. Big budget, and that's how we stayed. After the sort of piss up in 2011, the Mike Tyndall stag do down in Queenstown, which was actually the Rugby World Cup. Stuart Lancaster came in to tidy up brand England rugby, and he did a great job. He kicked out all the old boys, and he promoted a lot of the youth that we see playing today. And I was on the cusp. He actually sat me down. He said, "I'm not too sure about you. I've heard good things. I've heard bad things. I'm going to give you a chance." So I survived the cull. But going from, I suppose, my first experience of international rugby is brilliant. Hotels, the travel, the budgets, the card behind the bar, everything was taken care of. Lanny then humbled us. He brought us back down to grassroots, which is good, by the way.
Nah, it's not
But
as good as being a pro.
we started
though, is it?
staying in 2-star motels, these sorts of places. And when we came to Leeds, that's exactly how we stayed. I think we stayed in student accommodation where you guys live. Which is fine. You guys are students, but I was
They all live here, mate.
I was a
They all
big time
live here.
rugby player at the time.
Yeah.
Mature students. We'll give you that.
Man, we need to get you on the Sevens tour. That's all we stay in. 2-star motels.
You were telling me it's below
Amazing.
minimum wage.
Man, below minimum wage is what I've been on for the last couple of years. Yeah, you want to drink that point and shut up, man.
We want this to be inclusive and grassroots and not elite. Remember you saying at the time, Dylan, that you felt worried about the Range Rover turning up on bricks, didn't you, when you came out?
Greg, how did you get into Sevens for Ireland? Tell us about your pathway.
It's a long, dramatic story, man. Short story version is I was at Munster for 4 years.
Yep.
Great, learned my craft there. And then I had a big accident in New York. As all bad stories start, I followed a girl over there and fell off a bicycle, lacerated my Achilles tendon off the cog of the bike. Do you know the disc of the bike?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, lacerated. It's like getting a knife and just cutting your Achilles in two. I was not ideal when you're trying to play rugby. It was an awkward phone call to make back to the Munster physio. Obviously thought I was on the piss, but I genuinely wasn't on the piss when it happened.
You haven't got to lie anymore. Just tell
Yeah,
us.
I know, yeah.
Were you cycling away from danger?
Actually, just cycling home from the beach, man.
Self-defense.
So then obviously came home and I was not the athlete that they'd let go away for the summer. So they're like, look, we'll pay for your surgery, but you're just not the athlete you used to be. You don't have a leg anymore. The Sevens team picked me up. And in hindsight, it's the best thing that ever happened because I got to go to the World Series, World Cup, went to the Olympics, got a Love Island, which is the only reason I'm really sitting here.
No! don't be like that. It's not. Carry on. Yeah, it is. It is.
So that was my rugby career, and I retired at the age of 26 after the Olympics. Yeah, so it's been cool.
Right, we'll have to draw it back now to the Six Nations. Wales narrowly lost 29-7 to Ireland in the first game in round one.
They pipped them.
Were you surprised by how good Ireland were?
I wasn't surprised at how good Ireland were. They were. I've friends in the camp, and they said the setup they have at the moment, it's the best rugby, the most fun they've had in a long time. Andy Farrell's really created a good atmosphere in there. Even the old fellas like the Peter Mannies and Johnny Sexton said it's the most fun they've ever had. We're been in international camps. It's essential to be having fun in there, and they put in a lot of work, and a lot of young fellas coming in like the Ronan Kelleher's and Dan Sheehan's who are just pushing the young guys. But
Ronan Kelleher, what a player.
What a player,
Wow.
man. Yeah, he's out for the rest of Six Nations.
And Sheehan.
now.
I mean, also,
Yeah.
I mean, Keller's out, which is sad, but Sheehan is some boy as
Sheehan,
well.
but to see his game he had against France, man.
Yeah, ridiculous.
That effort he had as a hooker to come back and hold was a Pinot up. Unbelievable. So I thought Wales would actually put up more of a fight, to be honest. They were poor, man. Like, they just didn't really turn up. And Josh Adams in the centre I just didn't think was a good call.
I know that, but, Scotland beat England. Wales beat Scotland, so
It's not conkers, mate.
Well, it is conkers. It's rugby conkers.
You're just a different team in the Principality Stadium, like.
Yeah, I think a lot of that was like the emotional sort of luggage that came from the first game. You can't get up as much as that every single game. It was backs against the wall stuff at home. So
Was there a lot of pressure in Wales to
massive,
perform?
huge. There's more pressure, I think, in Wales than there was for Scotland. Scotland had the pressure of they won the Calcutta Cup twice on the bounce, but they hadn't beaten Wales since 2002 in Cardiff. And the pressure was on Wales to perform because the week before against Ireland, absolutely blown away. Lucky, actually, to beat 29-7.
Someone paid off Finn Russell then.
So, yeah, it wasn't the greatest, was he? Darcy Graham, brilliant, but they just did enough to get through. But it won't work like that every game. But England against Scotland.
How good is it to see Scotland beat England? Oh my God!
We all saw the result, yeah? We know what happened.
Little bit.
Yeah, we saw it.
Do you know what, though? I think they played a good game. It's not like
England
they went
or Scotland?
They were both of them.
Okay.
I think England went there, and at least they played. It wasn't like they got caught cold, a bit like Wales and Dublin. At least they played. It just didn't work out the way they wanted. I think they lacked someone like Manu Tuilagi at centre. They lacked that bit of punch. It's funny because if you throw your minds back like 2 years when rugby was shit, when South Africa were winning everything, they won the Lions Series, they won the Rugby World Cup. All they're doing was defending, kicking,
Scrummaging.
Yeah,
Yep.
but that was rugby at the time, right? But then Australia beat them. They unlocked them by playing attacking rugby. Harlequins emerge as like this new superpower in the Premiership. All Blacks always doing what they do. I think attacking rugby's back. That's how the game's being played right now. And when I look at England play in Scotland last 2 weeks ago, I think they just lacked a bit of that old style of England. They needed like the Billy Vunipola or the Manu. They needed to kick down the door instead of trying to work out how to unlock the door, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I think just that balance from England is what they need. And I think that's what they get back when you bring someone like Manu back in, Courtney Lawes back in.
Great.
But the most fucked up thing, I suppose, is this is a tournament of continuity. You win your first game. It's all about the win. And then you build on the performances and you get better and momentum builds, confidence builds. So you look at France. The thing with England is we're going to see 3 different teams by the third game. Scotland, we saw a team, then Italy, all changed. Then you got injuries coming back. So what's the team, Sorry, it's really technical, really.
No, it's good.
But
like it.
I just think 3 weeks. Please don't. Oh, have another pint. Get me a dram.
It seems like Eddie Jones is just looking towards the World Cup, and this just happens to be a stepping stone.
It does, but I find one thing I find really interesting is that you pick up on it straight away, Dylan, and everyone has. Manu Tuilagi has been out for ages, right? He's been out for ages.
See his first hit
He
against
comes
Esther
back.
Hazen.
Yeah, he comes back and he comes off the bench. I was commentating the game and he came off the bench. Quinn's against Sale, and Esther Hazen gets a ball that he doesn't really want, moving away. He's up high, right in front of Manu, and Manu folds him up like a deck chair, right? Like he's taking out the bins on a Tuesday night. So no one does that to Esther Hazen, but Manu had the angle. Manu looked great. He then starts the next week, plays nicely, and he's straight back in the England squad. England are an incredibly rich rugby nation financially. Not that that's really the point, but one of the reasons is there are so many teams, so many players to pick from, and there is still this absolute reliance on Manu Tuolangi being fit to give England the penetration they need and the threat they need. And it's not his fault. It's no one's fault that he's been injured a lot. It's horrible for him and everyone else, the people that are paying him getting paid to be injured. He must hate it too. There's all that. But as soon as he's fit, he's back in. Like, can you tell me a top-of-the-range sort of physical preparation expert, a strength and conditioning coach, physio, medic, whatever, who would say, right, this guy who's had a long history of serious injuries, he's a power athlete, he's played a game and a half, let's start him against Wales. I mean, it cannot be the best thing to do, but there's this weird thing. England have got 15 million players to choose from, but Manu has to play if we're going to win consistently. It's verging on an obsession. Problem is, he's that good, isn't he?
He is that good. He's world class on his day, and you know, it's not like he's 21, 22 years old as well. I think he's near 30 years old, so the experience that he brings as well. And I suppose when that team lines up in the tunnel and you look around and you go, we've got Manu on our side today, it can lift the team. And conversely, if you were lining up against him, you fucking smash him, yeah?
Where would you play him? 12 or 13?
I'll play him at 12.
Wherever he wants, mate.
He's going to attract 2 or 3 defenders if he's got the ball.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't have the ball, he's still going to attract 2 defenders, you know? So he's going to create space.
What about Greg? What about Bundy Aki in that first game against Wales? Brilliant. Like, brilliant distributor, brilliant decision maker.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of attack now comes off 12.
Yeah, Bundy is kind of the Manu Tuolangi in Ireland. When he's fit, he's probably going to be playing. Except we have Henshaw back now as well, who didn't feature in the first game. He got a couple of minutes against France, and he looked really good in the kind of 10 minutes he had. So probably he's going to start against Italy. And who would you play? Because you have Gary Ringrose down as well.
Is Ringrose nailed on at 13?
See, you don't know. Ringrose brings kind of the calm head. He'll make the defensive reads, but he's not as powerful as a
Then
Bundy
you've
or
got James
Henshaw.
Hume, who's probably the form player coming into it. And if there's a game to play someone like James Hume, it would be Italy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, that's kind of the question we're having in Ireland now is Andy Farrell going to play the same 15, keep the boys ticking over because they didn't really play well against France, so there's going to be an edge with the top lads, like, I want to get out international rugby again and play a good 80 minutes, but this is probably the best time to play the young fellas. And you saw today James Lowe's after getting called back in after scoring a wonder try against Ospreys.
What a try, though. Crikey.
Ridiculous. He did the goose step about 10 metres early and your man still bought it. It was ridiculous. And Jimmy O'Brien's been called in, so that would probably edge towards that he's going to play these guys that haven't got many minutes and hold the guys for the rest of Six Nations. But look, we all know Italy's probably an easy W. And
I lost twice to him.
Did you actually?
And Fiji, when they weren't that good.
I was going to say, though, like, Ireland-Italy is a foregone conclusion. That's a big W in the bag. But like, if you look at the sort of risk in that game as well of playing your frontline players, you know you're going to pick up an injury somewhere. You just don't want it to be too bad. Yeah. So Andy Farrell wants to get that team through that game with all his frontline players still. And I remember 4 or 5 years ago, we sat in Italy. We played the last game of the tournament. Everyone had lost the game. It came down to points difference, and we'd played Italy that day, and in the last 5 minutes of the game, we conceded a length of the field try. If we hadn't have conceded that, we would have won the Six Nations. And we sat there and we watched Ireland, I think they're playing France, win that day in Paris, and we lost the Six Nations title purely over us conceding a try.
Yeah. Some drop goal, though.
You let your country down. Yeah, sorry.
No, but my point is, whilst it's a foregone conclusion, Ireland beat Italy this weekend. I think this tournament, I still think France can be beaten either this weekend or by England. It's going to come down to points difference. So this weekend for Ireland is really important. You know, it's not, you just can't rock up. And if we saw anything from Italy last week, you're always going to score 3 or 4 tries before half time, and then second half floodgates open. They didn't do that last week. They stayed in the game. The last sort of quarter of the game, Italy is still there, and we're all questioning Italy's involvement. They beat England under 20s the other day, 6-0.
Yeah.
So if they can just nurture that group, bring them through.
I saw that result.
Italy in 50 years, maybe.
I saw that result 6-0. I saw that result 6-0. Wow.
Was it like a football match? 6-0.
Oh, it's football, yeah. Exactly.
And then, I saw England won, and I saw the result. I thought, I probably won't watch that. 6-0.
Do you know what I thought was amazing about that? I'd say the money put into the England 20s team compared to the Italy 20s team is just different level. Like, There'd be big money behind the England 20s, yeah?
It's not even that. I mean, there's infrastructure in that, but all those under 20s they're probably playing Premiership rugby. I wouldn't know where the Italian 20s play their rugby. Are they in the Treviso
No, they
Academy?
don't.
rugby,
They
I'd
don't.
say.
They don't play.
As my dad said about I mentioned that to my dad. My dad loves the game, and I said the England 20s lost the Italy 20. He goes, well, they should. It's a disgrace. They get everything. The England boys get laptops, hotels. I never know what that means. They stay in hotels. I think they all do. They give them all laptops. I don't think they do. But the Ireland thing, in terms of what team they put out against Italy, is an interesting one because this is one of those things that if an English player or ex-player says it, then they've got a chip on their shoulder. There's no chip on my shoulder. I'm just dealing with the information in front of me.
Chip in your belly.
Is that, yeah, there's a few chips in my belly, yeah. Behind my 8-pack, there are 4 chips behind my 8-pack, behind the third one down on the left. But the Irish guys are genuinely used to being rested for certain games and targeting games. So they're used to having a week or two off before big games and going into it. Whereas there was before was it 2 Lions tours ago to New Zealand, wherever it was like, this is how many minutes Johnny Sexton's played. This is how many minutes Maro Itoje's played. Holy shit. He has played 5 times more rugby than Johnny Sexton because there ain't, in the Prem, I know there's no relegation now, so that might start changing, but the Irish lads are practiced and really good at having a week off and then delivering on week 2 or 3, and it could happen.
Yeah, a big thing in Ireland, but obviously we're so small, there's only 4 teams we have to deal with. The IRFU really control everything in Ireland, where they all speak to all the S&Cs and the head coaches, and if you're an international player and centrally contracted, they're talking about what minutes you're going to play, what matches you're going to play. So Johnny Sexton's back this weekend, but will he feature? I don't know. It'd probably be up to Johnny if he wants to play or not. That's the kind of control he has. But you kind of want to see the Joey.
Imagine that. Can you imagine that?
Yeah,
Do you want a game or not?
it's the Johnny show, really, to be
Well,
honest.
he had last week against France. He didn't play that game, so I'm sure he want to play when he against Italy.
Might get a few minutes.
Anyway, what about Mac Hansen? You rated him highly.
Well, hang on a minute. This is important.
Before he got capped.
Yeah, this is important because we've done our prep on you, you horrible bastard, and we need you to tell the people here and the guests watching at home, whether they're watching on the downstairs toilet, on the train, the tube, tell them what you said about poor Mac Hansen. He's out. Do you know what? He's out there giving it his bloody best week after week, and you went on the telly, had your makeup done, they delivered you a Wagamamas at half-time. Tell everyone what you said about him from your ivory tower before his first cap.
Yeah, so I only am recently in this kind of media game. You've been doing it for what, 20 years now, buddy?
No, I've only been retired 3 years.
Yeah. So I host house rugby in Ireland, and I was like, this is the first time I'm going to go out on a limb here. That's kind of how you start getting engagement.
Take a risk.
And
Yeah.
I'm going to take a risk here. I'm going to
On a guy's first cap.
Yeah, I'm gonna have an opinion here. And I was like, the question was, will Mac Hansen get any game time in the Six Nations? And I was like, do you know what? There's people like Keith Earls, Andrew Conway, like James Owen might come back in. Balakoon. I was like, guys that have
players.
a lot of caps and experience behind them. Will Mac Hansen play? No, I don't think he'll play at all in the Six Nations. He's a great player, doing well at the sports ground, but that's about it. The man starts, first of all, so a tail between my legs already, and then he comes out, scores an unbelievable try, and gets man the match. And I had to publicly apologise on TV to Mac Hansen. And worse, in between that, I interviewed him on the pitch afterwards. And
mate.
Oh, man. He gave me nothing. He was just cold-faced.
Did you take the toupee off, or did you keep it on?
He clipped his hair off, and I clipped it off. He clipped it off.
Right, the
he's
first
incredible.
game, Scotland-England, Marcus Smith goes off when the game starts to get tight. He's done it for Quins. He's seen out games. Bad decision from Eddie Jones?
I think you could say, I mean, hindsight's great, isn't it? Tricky man.
What?
I just think
Yeah.
that's one of those things Eddie looks at and learns from. Because if you bring George Ford on,
Who wasn't in the squad initially.
Yeah, but he's a seasoned head. You know, he knows
he
how
is.
to close out a game, and well, it just didn't go that way. So that's one of those things. As a head coach or a director of rugby manager, whatever you want to call yourself, you've got to live with that. You know, next time would you do that? Maybe not. So he's learned a lesson there. I don't think Marcus did anything wrong. He did a lot right. I don't think George Ford had done anything wrong going into that game. He's probably if not the form fly half in the Premiership alongside Marcus. So you're not losing anything by bringing George on. Then you just have that series of events with Luke Cowan, Dickey volleying that ball.
Have you ever been in that position?
No. Man, Flats knows. If you're 110 kilo plus, you gravitate
You're
like
at guard,
the
aren't you?
moon to the earth. You get near the ruck.
You got your hand up at guard.
Yeah, A or B.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but do you know what? Again, looking at Luke's positioning there, he's just doing everything he can. Like, there's plenty of front rows in there, or people that look like front rows.
Yeah.
You're
Most of the crowd,
like,
ladies and gents.
You got to remember, he's already covered ground to get to that position. I think he's disorientated. He's trying to do the right thing. He's got it wrong. Speaking from experience, someone trying to do the right thing, getting it wrong plenty of times. He's trying to do the right thing, got it wrong, and obviously the outcome. Well, we all know the outcome. So,
What did you think of him apologising on social media?
I don't think you need to do it. I never apologise for shit.
Yeah, but mate, you'd have been tweeting every 15 fucking minutes, mate.
No, we live in a different world, where I don't think he needed to do that. He obviously felt like he needed to, and look, that feeling of leaving your team in that situation is enough to make you want to apologise. But look, the other thing is, what it's like under a high ball, don't you, Flats? Like,
Gotcha.
The slightest nudge on you, the slightest touch can
the wind.
change everything.
The wind,
yeah.
Brexit.
I just think it was a cluster of everything, and he shouldn't have been there in the first place.
I think it was a bit of panic,
We,
wasn't it?
we had a hooker called Elliot D. He got red carded against Benetton in the last couple of minutes for hitting a ruck high, but he apologised on Twitter. He didn't even include the Benetton player's name. He just said, sorry to that Benetton player that I hit. He could not even be bothered to look through the team sheet and name the player. It was like...
Is it Parise? No.
Joaquin Rivera, his name was. And he couldn't even be bothered. He said, sorry to that Benetton player. I'll buy you a pint next time. You're out.
The thing is, though, and you we're here to talk about Six Nations this bit, but on the Love Island thing, you will know the social media thing. It is anything you do wrong. It's a bit like Eddie Jones substituting Marcus Smith, right? So if you're a player and you're a good player, you're top of the game, and you make a mistake in a game, and it's just a judgment call. It's not, it's not foul play. It's just a judgment call, and you get the call wrong. You will get criticised for it, but you're allowed to call it a learning. Almost for a manager, especially an England manager and a head coach, they're almost not allowed. They're almost not allowed to learn on the job because it's like, actually, was that a mistake? And if he says yes, he gets hammered. If he says no, he gets called, a fluffer and a bullshit or whatever it is. That was a decision that didn't work out. A couple of years earlier, when England were 30 or 31 up against whatever it was, Scotland, they came back, took the lead. George Ford came off the bench and saved England against that same very similar Scotland team at Twickenham. So there is good reason to
It was
put
a draw,
him on.
wasn't it?
Yeah, but he saved them from a defeat at home, a record defeat, a horrendous defeat.
Like
So
kissing your sister, isn't it? Which
They say that.
Which I have done.
No, that's not true. I always think if people say a draw is like kissing your sister, like my sisters, I love my sisters, but I would regard kissing my sisters as a loss, not a draw. but no offence to them. But Shanks actually, this is going off piste a little bit.
We'll have to
in
edit
the old
this.
days.
We'll have to
Shanks
edit this.
basically, he was like, I forget what he was doing. He was like texting like suspiciously in the call. Who are you texting? Oh, your sister? As a joke. Okay. Anyway, I ring my mum and say, how you doing, mum? And she's like, well, good. And your sister, Ellie's looking forward. She's coming up to see Shanks for a drink on Saturday. I said, what? Shanks was injured. I was playing for Sarries. We lived together. And he had arranged a drink with my sister on the Saturday night. I said, no.
It was food.
Eat food. He doesn't like her. He wants to pull her because she's my sister. So he can say he's done it. She's not coming. Tell her it's not happening. Well, you better tell her. So I rang her and said, it ain't happening. This is what rugby boys are like. She's like, right, boom, stop, apparently. She stopped.
There's 2 times he's given me the proper eyes where, like, they've been dark eyes. Once when he had 2 hands full of shopping in Asda and I pulled his pants down. I kegged him brilliantly. And the second time was this.
It was tough times at Sarries. It was before the wage cap thing. He was only on 250, poor fucker.
Anyway, Dylan, so England lose the first game, play Italy next. How much would they have learnt from that game?
It's one of those, that Italy game.
Just
the game.
get back on the horse.
Yeah, a win.
A bit of a win. I just think that, like, going back to what we said about this tournament, the longer you're together in this tournament, the more you can grow. And I think this weekend, this is why it's so pivotal. We see a Welsh fan there in the crowd. I think for both teams this weekend, whoever wins this game can actually kick on, and we never know what's going to happen at the end when we get to points difference if we get there.
Yeah.
So England beat Wales. I think then they can grow and then go on to beat France potentially, which will be a huge task. But if they get this weekend right, it could determine the tournament going forward, basically. Whereas Wales, at the same thing, rocky start, got the result last week, and if they win this weekend, their tournament looks completely different.
Yeah, Falatau could be back as
Yeah,
well.
like everyone's basically with the fellow weeks, it just affords more people to come back. Launchbury, Laws,
Bit of time, yeah.
What are your memories of England v Wales or Wales v England? Any fun ones?
Yeah, fond ones. 10 wins out of 13.
Oops.
Found that out today. I did BBC podcast today, and they kind of educated me. So, no. Whenever I do this, and especially kids always want to know, what was the worst place to go play?
Yeah.
And I said, well, let's rephrase that. What was the most hostile place to go play? What was the best place to play as a competitor? I said, Wales. I forget what you call the stadium. You rename it every... I mean, money is...
Heaven.
No. We just call it Cardiff, okay?
Okay, yeah,
But
fine.
for me, the sort of hostility or the rivalry or the passion, however you want to explain it, was always greatest in Wales. You've got this interesting Celtic wave that you do. It kind of just lacks 4 fingers.
Oh, I thought you meant...
No, it's a different one. But always welcome down there. And I think genuinely, when you get an atmosphere or a rival, that passion that we get in Cardiff, it drives emotion. And when you got emotion, performance just goes through the roof. And we saw that at the weekend with Wales. But my question to a Welshman is, why do you wait to get a hiding or when England come to town to perform?
Yeah.
Why can't you do that every time you play?
I think it was like Ireland are a real difficult team to start with. Like the movement, the amount of passes, the way they attack, it's all numbers, it's all movement. They're flying after beating New Zealand as well in the autumn. Wales are lacking depth. They've got a good sort of 30, 32 players, but away from that, there's not the strength and depth. And we're slow starters. So it takes sometimes like a loss like that to produce sort of backs against the wall.
I love that the fact that you admit you're slow starters.
Yeah,
so
we can be.
You give yourself space to lose.
Yeah, but
psychologically, you say.
It's not psychological when it comes to Six Nations because we probably won more than England. And the last 4 years, we won 2 Grand Slams and 2 championships. So they're confident enough, but the way Welsh rugby is at the moment,
check those stats,
region.
That might be untrue, but I didn't even hear most of it. Can someone Google that?
But the way Welsh rugby is leading into this tournament is at a pivotal point where the regions aren't really performing. They're losing. They're quite low down the table of the URC. So there's not a lot of positive stuff going on at the moment. And then you lose Alan Wynne-Jones, you lose Ken Owens, you lose Justin Tipperick, you lose Josh Navidi, all these players, Lions as well, like quality players. And we don't have players to replace them, whilst other countries do. So I sort of sense that it might come a hiding against Ireland. You sort of hope first game up, you might catch Ireland cold. Something might happen. We might be lucky and Ireland get a red card again. But I think after that result, the pressure was mad. They got hammered in the media. They got hammered in the press, everywhere. And you're going to get a result. You're going to get a change, definitely. You're going to get reaction. And you saw that. It wasn't a brilliant game, Wales v Scotland, but they did enough to win. Didn't look like scoring loads of tries. Got a driving line out. That was enough.
Out of interest,
you can't do it every week. That's the issue.
The fella that's been in the Wales setup, the difference between your club teams and the international is just a different level. You've won 2 of the last 6 Nations. You always turn it on when it comes to Six Nations. What's that about?
I think it's because the regions do so poorly. And they're good players. We've got a group of good players, about 30 odd players that are quality. But below that, there's such a massive drop. And I think Wales winning over the Six Nations for sort of the last 10 years has papered over the cracks of Welsh rugby. And when Wales start to lose, then you're going to see, and when Wales start finishing sort of 4th, 5th, the Six Nations, then I think Welsh rugby just be ended. We'll finish.
Sorry, do you feel like you're almost victims of your own success? Gatlin had that team for 12 years. You probably had an iconic side for about a decade.
Yeah.
Iconic players. Like the fact that you've got people like George North, creeping around 100 caps. Alan Wynne-Jones at 100. It's disgusting how many games he's played. But you've almost got iconic players and you haven't really...
Gatlin took over when Wales were a quality team but lacked direction. And then we had a group of players come through, like sort of 5 or 6 players the same age that have gone on to win 60 caps. They're like Dan Bigger, John Davis, Lee Halfpenny.
George North.
George, he was a bit younger than the rest of them, but all these players came through at the same time. and they're like the core of the squad. Now, there's not players in that sort of bracket. You know, you're not seeing a group of under-20s come through where six or seven...
on that, Shanko, you know, you talked earlier, Greg, about going out on a limb about Mac Hansen, and, you know, you want to sort of, if you're going to be in the media, you got to give an opinion, otherwise you're sort of, you're Mr. Beige and you slip into the background. Shanks did a tweet. He did a tweet a few weeks ago.
I've not recovered since.
It's one of those things that people say any publicity is good publicity, but really, Shanks' stock in Wales is plummeting. He's having a really bad time. He's getting trolled. He basically did a tweet. He did a tweet, and he said there's no good young players coming through in Wales.
They're all players.
He basically said the young players in Wales are garbage. And do you know what? I read it, and I thought, do you know what, Shanks? You've gone too far. So I piled in and trolled him.
No. He tried to. I said, please don't, mate. I'm getting hammered. Please
he
don't.
WhatsApped me and said, don't do any more, mate. He said, where is the next generation of young Welsh players coming from?
Anyway.
I just said, Bristol, and everyone went mad on it. He said, WhatsApp me, stop, mate, stop.
We'll draw it back. Great win for Ireland, first round.
Well done, well avoided.
Against Wales. Missed the Johnny Sexton factor against France.
Yeah, people want to jump on that saying, oh, Johnny Sexton's missing, that's why Ireland didn't win. People forget that Joey Carberry's arguably one of the best out-halves in the world.
Is he better than Jack Carty?
Yes, he is. At the moment, he is.
Just get that on camera.
Yeah, he is. Jack Carty's class, but Joey Carberry is world class in the sense that the last time we played New Zealand, we beat them in the Aviva Stadium. I didn't play, but like my friends. And Joey Carberry got man of the match. Do you know what I mean? People just forget that. And everyone's like, oh no, Johnny's missing. They're like, there's still a world-class 10 to play there. Yeah. And Joey played really well in the sense that you didn't notice him on the pitch, which means he's playing well because he's distributing as a 10. He got all his kicks. Yeah. It was just, there was a lot of uncharacteristic errors. Like Hugo Keenan had his first poor game in 16 games for Ireland. Gary Ringrose dropped the ball a couple of times, never drops the ball. Yeah. So people like that never make mistakes, made mistakes. So they're probably a bit nervous in the Stade de France, but I have a feeling that France might slip up against Scotland or Wales because they're both away games. Yeah. And, do you know what I mean?
I think you might be right. And I watched Ireland in the first game against Wales, and it was like it's too easy to say every collision, but loads of the collisions in that game they looked dominant, and it was like massive carry after massive carry, and there were a couple of tries. I think I forget who scored. Was it Tyg Furlong that scored? And it was like that is way too easy. You shouldn't be scoring that at pro club level, let alone international level. But there was just so much power coming through. So it was almost like they, in a sporting sense, bullied Wales a little bit for power. They came up against France, who weren't going to be bullied, and suddenly the shape went a little bit. And we're used to seeing Leinster in particular look incredibly well prepared. Like everyone knows exactly where they've got to be. It's not robotic, incredibly well prepared, everyone being useful, involvements through the roof. And Ireland suddenly, when they got rocked back in the contact, because they dominated New Zealand as well in the contact in the autumn, they started getting rocked back and not winning those collisions, it kind of... Do they look rattled? That might be the wrong expression. The shape disappeared a little bit. Yeah. Would you go along with that?
Yeah, no, 100% agree with that. I feel like there was even a moment in the match when Bundy Aki took the ball really statically. He never takes the ball static playing with Connacht or Ireland. No. So it must have been that they were just feeling the nerves. And the issue is in Ireland is that we win one game, we beat New Zealand, and we're talking about winning the World Cup. Like we even skipped over the Six Nations and go, we're going to win the World Cup because we beat New Zealand. So I'd say the lads just felt such pressure.
Just want to qualify for the knockout stages of the World Cup. That'll be a plus.
We never get past the quarterfinals, and we're telling these lads we need to win the World Cup. So that's the issue. But the thing is, they played poorly. France played well, and we still finished with a bonus point. Losing bonus point against France. So like that is massive. That point's going to really come to stand to us because France didn't really beat Italy by that much because it was a shite day in Stade de France. So them coming now to Ireland this weekend, we're hopefully rack about 40, 50 points up, and then it opens it up for everyone really.
Dylan, what changes do you reckon England will make for the World Cup?
Can I just pick up on the
No, you
France,
can't.
Yeah,
yes,
the France
you can.
thing. The difference between the two, right? That they go out to France and they're basically Ireland attacking against Sean Edwards, like blue collar, northerner, like hard, gritty, but consistently good defensively. Like France of old just dipped in and out of defence. Like they could do it, then they just went, man.
They got quite lazy, wouldn't
like,
they?
We used to target their front five, you know, whereas their front five at the weekend were bad men. You know, they were what they built their performance on. Then at 50 minutes, they bring on another half a ton of cattle, you know, to do. Sorry, he's laughing. I'm not even trying to be funny. But the difference in ruck speed in those games. So the first game, Ireland's ruck speed was like 2.5 seconds. So if you've got quick ruck speed, you can keep the defence on the back foot. The defence is never loaded, so you're not getting 2-3-man tackles, slowing the next ruck. Sorry to give you a quick sort of layman's on rucks, but against France, it was like over 3 seconds. So France, with that physical in the tackle, they competed on every ball, slowed down Ireland's attack, which then I just see the Irish as a team on the front foot are probably one of the best in the world. Very dangerous. But as soon as you match them physically, and Tommy Bowe was saying this last week, that's his kind of fear about playing England. If England kind of beat them up physically, Ireland can't do what they want to do. So that's probably the
Which France and
challenge.
England can do to Ireland.
Yeah.
I don't think Scotland, Wales or Italy can.
I wonder about the brute force in the England team at the moment. There's a lot of it, and there should be a lot of it because there's a lot of players to choose from and all that, and it's a great league, the Premiership and all that stuff. But I sort of wonder. I think they look at, Billy Vunipola is out of the reckoning, and Don Brandt and Simmons have been sensational at 8, so you can't argue with them being in the squad. But I feel like England look a different team with Courtney Lawes in it and without him in it. And
is he coming in at the weekend then? For
well,
you?
he's fit again, and I was going to ask you, Dylan, about, because you played with him for so many years with Northampton and England. Firstly, him as someone to play alongside, and the way he collides with people, but also him as a captain, because I don't know him anywhere near as well as you do. But I remember my first impression of him. I went on England tour. 2010, did you go on that tour? Australia, New Zealand.
No, I missed that one.
Hell of a tour. It's all the first choice players went
busy.
on that one. No, all the good guys are injured. And we kind of went on that. And I played against Courtney a few times, and he was knocking people around, knocking people's heads, not heads off. He never gets done for high tackles, knocking people around. And first time I saw him at Twickenham at the Marriott for breakfast, he wanted to, "Hello, Flats, I'm Courtney." All right,
He's not from fucking Birmingham.
He is. That is not what I expected. All right, Flats. It was. So for him to be England captain, he seemed to take to it reasonably well. Do you like the idea? Do you think he's as indispensable in the team, and do you like him as a captain?
I love him as a captain. Do you know what? It was a surprise to me when I saw that happen, and I know him very well. But I think it just, like all things in life, he's matured greatly. He's again he's a bit like Manu in that team. You look around, you go, okay, he's adding to everyone else around him when he's in the team. He's got a presence because, one, he's fucking massive. 2, he delivers on the field. And going back to like the first time I met Courtney, actually, if anyone's been to Northampton Franklin's Gardens, he literally grew up a stone's throw from the stand. Like, he lives opposite. There's a pub opposite the club, and then he lives there. So he's as local as they come.
He lives in the pub.
No, yeah. Ironically,
Got high ceilings, yeah.
Never drunk either, but he drinks now. But like, he was coming through. There's a lot of talk about him because he's a big youth. And I remember the first game we played in the Championship, played against Coventry, and I thought, for all this talk, this kid, he doesn't really give much on the field. He'd made his tackles, won his line-outs. I kept on saying to him, kind of, give me something, communicate, and he just looked gormless, so laid back. It turns out after the game, he broke his fucking jaw. And in true Courtney form, he just soldiered on and got on with it because he's a tough kid, So, and I look at his game, like, he's renowned for his defensive highlights, right? His YouTube reel, you could find defensive highlights all day. But then he's bolted on. Like, Eddie came in and said, look, if you want to be in this team, I need you to carry the ball. So he starts being a ball carrier. Like, every day after training, I've seen him practicing his running lines. And then he started getting smoked. He became a threat. So people were defending him, 2-man tackles. And he's going, fucking hell, dude, I'm getting banged. So then he adds handling to his game. So he stood the test of time, a bit like Benny Youngs. He's evolved his game as he's got older. And his leadership credentials, he's quite a laid-back guy, right? He's full Jamaican. Like, he's Jamaican laid-back. He hardly speaks. He's not that interested in rugby, but when he does speak, he's powerful, He's educated in rugby, he knows what he's saying. So naturally, when you're world-class on the field, you've got good sort of respect and credentials within your group, he's a natural fit for me. And again, just a guy that stood the test of time.
Do you want to know a great stat? I know you've got a great question.
We're going to wrap up soon.
This is a great stat, and I don't know if you knew it. Courtney Lawes, 6'7", by the way, known as an absolute hitman, body snatcher, taking people out for years. Courtney Lawes has been penalised for making a high tackle. This is true. Once in his whole career, and that was on his Northampton Saints debut. That is the first and last penalty he gave away for making a high tackle. So when you see these lads, like big lads, getting red cards and yellow cards for high tackles, one of the nightmares for these lads who are saying it's impossible for me to get low is Courtney Laws being 6'7" and only ever having been done 25 years ago for one. Amazing stuff.
So, England, Wales, would you have Courtney Laws in, and would you have Tuolangi in, and who's going to win?
England are going to win.
Okay.
I'll tell you what. That's not because I'm half English, by the way. So I have a half bias. I just think they've shown more.
Yep.
Like you say, Wales got a hiding out in Dublin. They didn't even get out their corner. They didn't throw a punch. Against Scotland, I don't think they threw many punches, but they got the result.
Attitude.
But I didn't see a performance. You know, I didn't see them create anything. And I just think England have been kind of bubbling away. They tried creating things against Scotland. They found opportunity. Italy, they capitalised, you know, in attack, which was good. So I think England have just shown a bit more of what they're capable of.
Yep.
Defensively, the sound.
Would you have Tuolangi in?
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
What's interesting as well, like if we can talk backs play just quick as well.
Yeah.
You know, fly halves aren't being used as a traditional fly half at the moment. Like how many times do you see the fly half actually touch the ball first phase?
No.
It's always the
off
winger.
12.
Alice Genge is running like a 12.
Yeah.
Manu Tuolangi, even when he played at 14, they're using him first phase. So they use
It's
like
rugby
a
league,
power
isn't it?
runner to tie in the open side flanker, the opposition fly half, and opposition 12. So 3 people get tied up with an Alice Genge or a Manu Tuolangi carry. Then Marcus Smith then does what he wants next phase, attacking 3 backs. You know what I mean? So that is completely irrelevant to what you asked me.
No.
But it's just interesting. Look out.
No, but it's a good observation.
Okay.
I'm going to steal it and pretend it's my own.
Ireland, Italy. How many points are Ireland going to win by? It's at home.
Yeah,
It's at the Viva.
Depends on the weather, but it's got to be at least 40. Yeah.
Flats, talk to you. Scotland, France in Murrayfield.
I'm completely neutral in that game. I would love Scotland to win that game.
France
just 'cause
too
it's more
big.
fun, but I think France will have. They'll have too much grunt. They're difficult to run around because they've got pace. They're defensively organised, and as soon as you start going route one, close quarters against France, that's what they do in the top 14. It's almost all the top 14 is bashing each other at close range.
The pack is so big. Then you've got like Fiku, you've got Dante, you've got Vakatawa, who's back fit but not playing. You've got Moefana.
Penaud, big
Penaud.
unit. Yeah.
But
Nightmare.
Scotland have won the last 2 games up. So
Yeah.
how do we always talk about the French travelling, but psychologically, how's that sit with this sort of young new French team? Do they go there thinking, oh fuck, this is going to be hard today?
It ends up being a real
and
test, doesn't
Scotland
it,
can't
for them,
win
yeah.
back-to-back games, so hopefully they don't lose back-to-back games.
Yeah, that's what you have to remember. France's first 2 games were in the Stade de France, and
Yeah.
they don't travel as well. Like, you know, and Murrayfield's becoming a bit of a fortress now. They beat England there, which is huge. So you never know. I think Scotland might pivot.
Great anthem as well at the start, isn't
Great
it?
anthem.
I think it's the best.
2
with
great
the
anthems.
lone bagpiper on the top, and then it shuts off for the second.
They do
version.
that Celtic wave up there as well.
What's
The one that misses the fingers.
Is that the one where they show they got 2 fingers because they can still fire a bow and arrow? Anyway,
What do you think? England, Wales, what do you think?
yeah, I think England. I think it's going to be tough for Wales off the back of how they performed. I think Faletau coming back. I think Josh Adams will come back onto the wing. The back 3 for Wales is a strength for them, but they can't get the ball there in any space because they can't get the platform up front. So I think it's going to be tough. I think if Wales can keep it within sort of 7 to 10 points, it'll be pretty decent. Twickenham is a horrible place to go.
Thank you for tuning in to the latest stop on the We Love Sport Guinness Six Nations Tour.
Make sure to download the We Love Sport app to book your place to catch the Six Nations and all the best sport in action.